Shields up, Ironbreakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Splatoon 2. This title was sent to me by Nintendo so that I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. And in today's video, we're going to be focusing on the single-player hero mode. Now, this is a mode where you bring your little Inkling down from Inkopolis Square and you bring him to Tentacule Outpost. And eventually, as you play through the different levels available to you in Tentacule Outpost, it unlocks further outposts. And essentially, these outposts are kind of like these overworlds. But you also have to explore these overworlds in order to reveal the sub-levels that they have. And in order to do this, you will have to solve certain puzzles of how to navigate the map. You will use Splatoon-specific mechanics in order to navigate the map in this way, like you will paint walls and then like squid your way up walls, and then you will have to figure out, okay, so from this platform I will be able to jump to that one if I do a squid jump type thing, and then I'll have to break these boxes over here but basically you'll have to solve a multitude of puzzles in these overworlds, and then this will grant you access to these different sub-levels, which will be where you will spend most of the time while you are playing in single-player mode. Now, on these sub-levels, you will also have to solve certain puzzles, but in here you will also have enemies which will be shooting at you, so you'll have to both figure out how to navigate the level in the most efficient way possible, as well as how to dispatch enemies in the most efficient way possible by using the different tools at your disposal. And there are tons and tons of things, each level at the start bringing its own theme, and then further complicating itself the more levels you are in, so that it kind of like provides you with all these different tools and all these different puzzles that you will have to solve. It is very much fast-paced action as you are going through these levels, unless you want to take your time, which you can, but I think you will get scored if you take less time completing these levels, so that might be something you want to take into account. And beyond that, there's also a couple of collectibles there, one of them being Sardinium and the other one being Sunken Scrolls. Now, these, I believe that the Sunken Scrolls are mainly just a completionism thing, but the Sardinium is actually used for you to upgrade your weapons and your gear. Now, multiplayer and single player have different upgrade paths, so the stuff that you get in multiplayer is for multiplayer. Stuff you get in single player is for single player exclusively, pretty much. You will still be getting some of the guns in single player that you can get in multiplayer. This will be done via I believe it is the character that runs the weapon shop in Inkopolis Square. He will have like requests for you to use specific weapons, which is why on some footage in this video you will see me rocking the dualies in single player mode, which is the new weapon, by the way, to Splatoon 2. With this weapon was not in the original Splatoon. But basically, as you navigate through these levels, you are looking for these things called zap fishes, because ultimately the objective is for you to recover this big fish-like thing that the Octarians have stolen from Inkopolis Square, and that is apparently what powered Inkopolis Square. So if you don't recover it, obviously you're going to run into problems with electricity down the line. But as you dispatch Octarians and grab Zapfishes, eventually at the end of each of these overworlds, you will encounter a boss fight. And these boss fights will also require you to use mechanics specifically to Splatoon, like painting walls, going up walls, using your squid mode, using grenades, using all of the different tools that you have at your disposal to navigate both these levels, as well as navigate the bosses themselves, in order to dispatch them and gain all the different bonuses that you can get from that. Now, like I said, the progression in single player and multiplayer are separate, so if you're just someone who wants to focus on multiplayer, you don't necessarily have to do the single player stuff, although I would say it is pretty fun. There's a lot of fun to be had in single player, and just because Splatoon 2 is just like Splatoon 1, is very much a multiplayer focused game, it doesn't mean that the single player is lacking, which in my opinion it is not. However, I do believe it is probably there's probably a lot more for you to experience in the multiplayer side than in the single player side. That doesn't mean that you should ignore it completely. Now, something that I would like to talk about is obviously the visuals, because even though I've kind of mentioned most of the things that I can say about single player, I would also like to bring up, you know, the visuals of the title, which is looking pretty good. I mean, I liked the way the game looked back on the Wii U. It looks even better now on the Switch. I do have to say that in Inkopolis Square, they favor resolution over performance, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, because it's like, sure, in Inkopolis Square, there's not a lot of action. You're just like going around watching people's, outfits and their guns and all the different customization options. So it's not really a big deal that the frame rate is pretty bad. But when you are in the game mode, I can see that they downgrade the resolution. I don't know exactly what resolution are using. It seems like it's a little bit higher than 720p, but I can't tell for sure. But it's definitely not 1080p when you're in actual game mode playing. However, it does run 60 FPS, which in my opinion is much more important than a resolution. So the visuals in my opinion look good. I love the art style from Splatoon. These are two games in my opinion that Nintendo is doing really well, which is Splatoon and ARMS. And I have to say that I think a lot of people underestimate the competitive potential of these games, even though I'm not here to talk about competition. It's just something that I like to say whenever I'm talking about Splatoon and ARMS. Like, these games have tremendous competitive potential, and I just want people to be aware of this instead of just like ignoring it, which in my opinion is kind of what happened to the original Splatoon. I think it was largely ignored as a competitive thing, and I'm hoping it is now what happens for Splatoon 2. I want to see both Splatoon 2 and ARMS get their fair share of competitive community getting in there and like running tournaments and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, because I think these games have a lot of potential. Anyway, so the visuals are really good. In terms of sounds in the original Splatoon also damn perfect. I like the sounds in here, like just the sound from when you are a little squid and you drop into the ink and it's like just a drop of water, like blook. Like all of that stuff to me is perfect. The sounds are great. The one thing that I do have some criticism on is the music. Now, the music in Splatoon, like the stuff you hear on trailers and stuff, like that stuff is really cool, but in single player mode is just more generic kind of music that I was somewhat disappointed. Like, I really wanted some of those more iconic tunes that you hear in Splatoon in single player mode. But then again, I guess there's probably not that many of those tunes, which I wish there were because I really like them. But yeah, I guess if they put the same tunes over and over, it would be too repetitive, which is why they use this more generic kind of stuff. But I really wish there was more of that, that kind of style. Hopefully, maybe they'll work on it in the future. Who knows? But the cool thing about Splatoon is that it's going to be supported with free DLC for, like, I believe a year, which is what is currently planned. So that's going to be pretty good. But yeah, in terms of single player, it's been pretty fun. I think I should mention the controls now, which is also a very important part of Splatoon, particularly because not that many people probably played the original Splatoon. I think a lot of people are going to be coming into Splatoon 2 for the very first time, and I think the controls is going to be something that people are going to struggle with. So basically, Splatoon uses motion controls to aim, but you can still use the right stick to kind of correct a little bit, and to, when you're turning maybe too much, because, like, aiming a little bit to the left, to the right, it's kind of easy, but when you need to aim like all the way like that, you might want to use your right stick and then just adjust slightly. So those controls, I can tell you right now, the first time that you play the game, it's not going to feel right. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel weird, but trust me, stick with it and try to keep using motion controls. Now, if you're one of those purists who's just like, I can't use motion controls, I can't do it, then you can turn those off and you can just straight up use right stick to point and shoot, which is perfectly fine. But I should warn you that I believe that people who use motion control will have an advantage over you, because motion control, in my opinion, allows you for a bit of a more precise aiming, even if you do struggle with it at the beginning, which is why I would advise you guys to kind of like try to stick with it. And the reason I say this is because back in the original Splatoon, the more competitive players would often say that's like aiming with motion is better than aiming straight with right stick. But to each his own. I'm just letting you know that you have those two options. If you really hate motion, you can still play Splatoon, and I'm sure that you'll be able to still be somewhat competitive. I'm just, like I said, just be ready for the fact that some people will be using motion, and motion is apparently a better way of doing it. I could be wrong, but I'm just letting you guys know the way that it is. However, it is going to be kind of weird for you to get used to it. There's also a button specifically to reset the angling. It's mostly for the vertical, because like if you're aiming too far up and then suddenly you feel like you have to do all the way this to aim down, you can kind of like reset at any point pressing Y, and that will pretty much fix it. So just keep that in mind. Controls will be challenging at the start, but it is a very accessible game, so just practice it. As a matter of fact, single player mode is a really good way of practicing it, because you don't have that that tension of being in the middle of a multiplayer competitive match, and therefore you can just like practice aiming both with and off, both with and without motion controls, so that you can try it out for yourself and figure out if that is the way that you want to play or not. But like I said, so far, single player mode's been pretty fun. I'm gonna keep at it. Gonna play some more. I've only beaten the first boss so far. I'm gonna start going after the other ones, and later down this week, I'm gonna be able to play a couple of multiplayer matches. And at some point, I don't know exactly what the date is. Actually, I can check here real quick. On the 18th, I should be able to tell you guys my opinions on the multiplayer as well. So hopefully you guys are as excited for Splatoon 2 as I am, because it's looking pretty good, and I'm happy to have another great title on the Switch. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave me all your comments, feedback in the comment section below. Hit up that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.